Officials in the Department of Energy made a case for energy credits in the last budget, according to documents released under FOI to Sinn Fein MEP Lynn Boylan. Civil servants pointed out that households would have to find an extra €321 without the credits, which were ultimately not included in the budget. Let's get more on this now from our political correspondent, Micheál Lahan, who joins us now. And Micheál, the cost of energy and energy credits still a live political issue then?
Very much so. The Aontú leader in the last while, during lengthy statements on energy prices in the Dáil, Peadar Tóibín, accusing the government of lacking the urgency of even a snail when it comes to tackling those rising prices, employing a festive team. Independent Ireland TD Richard O'Donoghue said it is ironic, but many people would be very grateful indeed if Santa Claus were to give them a bag of coal this Christmas. Such is the crisis that many are facing. And it's not just on the opposition benches that you can sense the unease. People like the Fianna Fáil TD Cathal Crowe said there was an expectation among many households that he has spoken to that those energy credits would be in place. And of course we know now that at least some officials thought they should have been introduced once again. And we heard repeatedly that there are 300,000 households now who are in electricity arrears. It all led to fairly spicy exchanges in the Dáil chamber earlier during leaders' questions, as you'll hear now.
Taoiseach, your government had all of this information, yet you still decided to abandon workers and families by withdrawing these energy credits. You did that at a time when you knew, and your officials told you, that energy company after energy company had decided to increase their prices these months. Over 1 million families are going to see pricing increases.
We believe in targeting resources. There's about €2 billion social protection package, which is about protecting pensioners, which is about protecting families with children, and particularly people on low incomes. That's the choice we made.
And Micheál, this round now taking place against the backdrop of the latest Exchequer figures released today, which show a bumper tax take then in November.
Yes, there are healthy returns when it comes to things like VAT and income tax, but I suppose the big figure there once again is corporation tax, for standing at 10 billion for the month. And if you look at where it's projected to end up for the year, it will be about 32 billion. And I suppose that ultimately is the anchoring force that will pave the way for a government surplus in the region of 10 billion. And that is something that allows them to have a surplus, even though there have been overspending in many government departments that required supplementary allocations to be made over the course of the year. But I suppose that warning and those vulnerabilities still remain in place when it comes to that particular tax. And if anything were to happen internationally that could blow that wide open, then decisions on things like energy credits and indeed many more parts of government spending could become a lot more difficult indeed in the future.
OK, Micheál Lahan at Leinster House. Thank you.
Now, as we heard earlier, Exchequer returns released today show corporation tax receipts continue to soar. Before coming on air, I spoke to Simon Harris, Taoiseach and Minister for Finance. I put it to him that we're in danger of repeating mistakes of the past by relying on one type of tax take for day-to-day spending.
No, absolutely not. So, I mean, what we do see from the Exchequer returns today is a very strong set of returns. Income tax up, VAT up. These are encouraging signs of a strong economy. And yes, we also see a very elevated, buoyant level of corporation tax. But we are preparing for shocks in relation to the Irish or global economy. And that's why we're continuing to run budget surpluses. It's why we're setting money aside into funds. We'll have €17 billion in funds to provide a buffer for any shocks to our economy. By the end of the year, it'll grow to 24 billion next year. And it's also why we have to be prudent in relation to the spending of public money. You know, every day in my job, half of the time I'm asked, why are we spending so much money? Other times I'm asked, why are we not spending more? It's about trying to get that balance right, but also to keep the country attractive for investment, because these multinational companies are employing so many people right across our country in many, many towns and villages.
Now, you're saying we have to be prudent. The Fiscal Advisory Council just last week came out and said the government is spending like there's no tomorrow. And just looking at our vulnerability to the corporation tax, doesn't it just take Donald Trump to look at the US companies based here and maybe decide to introduce more tariffs at the drop of a hat?
So I had a very good meeting with the Fiscal Advisory Council. Indeed, it was one of the very first meetings I took when I became Minister for Finance. And they are right on this. We need to publish a medium-term fiscal framework. We need to do it by the end of the year to anchor our spending and our taxation. They're right on that point, because that provides clarity, not just to economists, so important to them too, but also to people right across the country and to government departments about how we get on with delivering the programme for government commitments. In terms of Trump and President Trump and trade and tariffs, yes, there are real risks there. That's why, again, we're continuing to run budget surpluses. But it's also why we're continuing to engage constructively at an EU level with the US. US companies don't locate in Ireland for the weather. They locate here because it's a good place to do business. It provides them with access to the EU markets. And we can never be complacent about that. We've got to continue to pursue pro-enterprise policies to make this country an attractive place in which to invest and create jobs.
Just looking at your very ambitious infrastructure plan announced today, yet we're looking at major delays, 15 years to deliver major road projects, 10 years for water and 8 for electricity. What's in this plan that can help to alleviate those delays?
So first thing I'd say is we deliver a lot of things in this country in a good way. There's been about 800 school projects delivered over the last number of years, 150,000 homes since 2020, a national broadband plan on time and on budget. But the report clearly identifies, and this is why we did this work, that it takes far too long to deliver far too many projects. So under this action plan today, we'll be looking at streamlining processes, cutting bureaucracy, multiple agencies asking for the same bit of information, and also looking at the whole process of judicial reviews. People have a right to access our courts, absolutely. But we do need to introduce a really important element called the public interest, the common good. You know, if you take a judicial review, it's not consequence-free. It can delay a major project that might be needed to provide homes, to get rid of raw sewage going into people's seas and rivers, or indeed to deliver crucial public transport. So this is about trying to balance all of the various needs. We're in a good position financially, 275 billion to spend on capital. But now we've got to make sure things are delivered more quickly. And that's the purpose of today's plan.
But are we in danger of losing all that's good in our planning process?
No, it is about a balanced approach. People always have a right to the courts. Of course they do. But there are some pieces of infrastructure that are clearly critical, that are clearly an emergency in terms of whether it's access to water, whether it's wastewater, whether it's some major transformational projects. And we do have to say some things are just so important that there is that common good that is above your concern or my concern, that is in that national interest. And this is about getting that balance right. And that's the aim of the plan today.
Now, you're talking about the common good. I want to ask you about energy credits. Sinn Fein are saying today that you scrapped the idea of introducing one-off payments against the advice of civil servants.
I think that's a misrepresentation. You get lots of different inputs, as you can imagine, from lots of different departments before doing a budget. We've spent €3.3 billion on energy credits over the last number of years. What we've done this year is try to take a more targeted approach, expanding the fuel allowance, making sure that more people than ever before get the fuel allowance, increasing the amount that the fuel allowance is, and reducing VAT on everybody's energy bills as well. But let's be clear, a TD in Dáil Éireann doesn't need an energy credit. So we do have to move away from that universal aspect. Again, at the start of this interview, you asked me about, are we spending too much? This is about taking a balanced approach, helping those most in need. I know energy bills are too high. That's why we're investing more in energy infrastructure, targeting supports to those most in need, and reducing the VAT rate for everybody on their energy bills.
TDs may not need energy credits, but lots of people do. And when we look at inflation figures, it's always food and energy prices. People need food. They can't just avoid spending on food and say, like, they can avoid going on a holiday.
No, the cost of living pressures are real for families. And that's why in this budget we tried to make sure that we get that balance right, targeting supports at those most in need, a particular focus on things like child poverty, and making sure that the state pension went up, that supports for carers, supports for people with a disability. And I do hope now in future budgets we can get back to that normal rhythm of budgeting. But this was an important budget to try and, I suppose, really make sure things were sustainable, and also to invest in key areas that are essential to our economic health. You can't do anything in this country in terms of delivery unless you have a sound economy. And my job and the job of government in the time ahead is to keep our economy secure so that we can take decisions that will help people in their everyday lives and help our country deliver on the many issues we need to in the time ahead.
Minister, why, as leader of Fine Gael, did you put yourself in the position of Minister for Finance? We now don't have a prudent Pascal to rein in government spending. Won't you just be looking ahead at the next general election?
Well, you don't have a prudent Pascal, but you have a sensible Simon. I've served as Taoiseach of this country. I will be serving as Taoiseach of this country again. During the lifetime of this government, I've sat at the cabinet table for many years, and I bring that experience, plus the experience of negotiating and engaging on the last 2 budgets as a party leader. I felt it was important when Pascal made the decision. I wish him well. He served our country so well. I made the decision that it was important to really take a domestic focus and to really help drive the domestic agenda and the many issues I heard from people right across the country. So I felt the political experience that I had, and at this key moment that it was the right call to make at this stage of the coalition.
All right, Taoiseach and Minister for Finance, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Eileen.